or 443-0700.
Now, it's time to talk on Teleforum on Beaver County Radio. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and BeaverCountyRadio.com. And now, here is the host of the show, Eddie Crow.
73 degrees. It is Teleforum, second hour of Teleforum. Tom Young was my guest the first hour. Here in the second hour, I'm really excited about this. Jeff Bost, consultant with St. Barnabas. We talk from time to time, but this is the first time in a long time that I've seen you in person. It's great to see you. Please welcome Jeff Bost of St. Barnabas. This is being live streamed. If you want to go, oh, that's what Jeff looks like. How are you, sir?
Did I scare you when I saw you?
Not as much as the other way around in general, I suspect, but it's great seeing you. We've done a lot of phone interviews to get to do this. This makes me very happy. And the topic today, it doesn't make me happy, but I had noticed some numbers. It's not a happy thought, but because of what numbers that I saw, we need to talk about it. We're going to talk about cancer in young people, and specifically colon cancer, because it's gone up 50-something%. I want to get I saw those numbers and I thought, okay, I'm going to ask Jeff why he thinks that is. So that's what we're talking about today, right?
Right, and thank you for having me here. This studio is fantastic. Everybody's been great, and I'm just overwhelmed. But I finally get to see you in person, and hopefully you can make this a regular habit. But we are talking about the big C, and that's cancer. And whenever you mention cancer, of course, everybody's frightened. Everybody knows someone who's had cancer. Many people have had them suffered through cancer. The good news is the majority of people who have had cancer have survived it, and that's increasing year over year and with new technologies. But there's certain areas that we're getting better at and certain areas that we're not getting better at. And the worst things to happen is cancers, of course, in young people. And that's what I'm here to talk about, the idea that cancer is really shifting from an older disease to include also younger people. When I say younger people, I mean those under 50. So that might not seem too young to you, but in general, cancer is a disease of older people.
When you hear it, the first question is, oh, how old are they?
Right.
Okay, and that's the timeline we put it on, but that's not the case anymore.
No, and it really is. It's scary in the sense that many people in less than 50 certainly aren't thinking about cancer on their horizon. They aren't thinking about heart attacks. They're really in the prime of their lives, and so these diseases, these chronic diseases that are generally, as we get older, are becoming frighteningly common. And the one that's actually, as you mentioned, has really exploded in our recent history is that of colon cancer.
All right. Why?
Well, that's a great question.
Why? I mean, I'm sure that's a flip of a switch. Jeff goes, oh, well, here's why.
Well, it's colon cancer is the third most common cancer to begin with. So it's a common cancer. Our colon, it's interesting to think about the colon, Eddie, and I'm going to give you a visual picture of it.
All right. This is why we Facebook Live this stuff. Tell me, describe the colon.
Well, the colon is sort of like our skin on the inside. So we're surrounded by skin. What does that do? That protects us from the outside, keeps water from leaking out of us. It actually has its own bacteria and other organisms that protect us. The colon is basically skin on the inside. It's a pathway where the outside comes in and then transfers through us.
Is it the same tissue, or is it a slightly different tissue?
It's different. It's different tissue.
Okay.
It's more absorbable, whereas the skin's less absorbable, more impenetrable.
So we're talking about waterproof versus not waterproof.
Not completely, but
Right.
it keeps our insides from falling out as well.
Ooh.
So it really is something. But when I talk about colon cancer, I'm talking about the large intestines, and that is an area where the cells are always being sloughed off, sort of like our skin. And so there's a lot of cellular regrowth going on, a lot of cellular division, a lot of new cells appearing in that area. And as there's a lot of cell division that can lead with certain conditions like toxins or change in our microbiome, which are the bacteria in our gut, or other factors that can lead to cancer.
So cancer is going to show up when cells are replenishing themselves through division?
Well, not necessarily, but the point is that our colon has a lot of cells that are being made. And if something alters those cells to become cancerous, whether, again, it's related to our diet, our toxins, and a lot of colon cancers are genetically linked, meaning there's a predisposition and something may trigger that. And so there's a lot of theories as to why that happens when we get older, but that doesn't make sense necessarily when we get younger. So we're talking in some ways about a generational shift in what we've been exposed to. So think about the toxins in our environment. I'm over 50. I believe you're probably over 50.
Oh, that is so polite of you to phrase it that way. Thank you. Yes, I am.
Okay. But I think it's the fact that there's a concern that something environmentally is going on, that we've been getting different exposures that may increase relative to toxic chemicals and other things, maybe increasing the risk of cancer, now shifting down to younger ages. So that's one of the concerns. You ask why, a reason. But the other reason, of course, is what goes through our colon. It's our diet. So it's what we ingest. So there's a big link and a association now with our society and the explosion of things like obesity, eating high sugar foods, high fat foods. The things that we eat may definitely be impacting our colon health and most likely leading to things like colon cancer. The other thing is a large percentage of people now have colon problems, whether it's irritable bowel syndrome,
Crohn's, colitis, and they all skyrocket the risk of colon cancer relative to the inflammatory process that's going on and the autoimmune process that's going on. So all these things are sort of piling up. That all said, a lot of this may be the fact that those cancers had been occurring all along, but now we're starting some screening technologies done earlier and earlier. So the screening, of course, for the colon is to check for blood in the stool. And that's a fairly straightforward test. You just take a small sample, put it on a stick, rub it on a card, send it off to the lab. They come back and they tell you whether or not you have blood, and then you get worked up from there. So there may be a lot of things going on with this relative to increases reasons why we're having problems with irritation and toxins and diet that are stimulating the cancer, as well as the fact that we may be catching things a little sooner in younger people that maybe had gone on for years that we were missing. You mentioned food. Just your opinion, do we eat worse than ever in history, or do we just eat more bad but not really worse? It's just the amount.
You know, that's a great question. You know, it's the old chicken and the egg in some ways. Really, the question, the root of that answer goes back evolutionarily. We did not develop in a time frame where we had old people. And what I mean old people, 40, 50, 60 was ancient. So evolutionarily, we just had to get it to where we could reproduce.
Okay.
And so old age was anything after that, after you stop reproducing.
He's 25. That's ancient.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the things that we're seeing now is basically conditions that have never been around in the millennium of humans, and that's people that are old. And when I say old, it's certainly a relative thing. I don't consider myself old. I'm in 60s, but I don't consider myself old. However, without the fact of regular food that's available to me, immunizations, healthcare, I wouldn't be in my 60s. So those things were not available evolutionarily. So we had to get basically all of our business done in our teens and 20s, and then maybe it was a little bit of gravy after that, living longer. So the question you basically are raising is the diseases we're learning about now chronic diseases like heart disease and cancers and so on are really new to the human species. And so we've learned a lot, but we don't know exactly, how long it takes all of our cells in our body eventually to wear out and break down and to develop cancer and other diseases that we're seeing.
I want to ask you this as a medical professional while we're talking about relative old age. Life expectancy is going down. Is that because of our behavior? Is that because we aren't catching up with the cancers as they're showing up as soon as we should?
It's a great question. And
is it a lot of fudge pops?
I think my favorite food. No.
Is it really?
No. But I think it would be if I started eating them. The question of life expectancy is a whole nother ball of wax, if you will, because the reason is it's a population. You are not a population. You are Eddie Crow. My name's Jeff Bost. So we are individuals. On an individual basis, those statistics really mean nothing to us. I might live till I'm 100. You might live till you're 110. We don't know that how necessarily the average population longevity doesn't necessarily affect every individual. But what it does tell us is some trends and things that are going on in our society. So we actually, as a human race in the developed countries, have added about 50 years to our lifespan in the last 200 years on average. So imagine that huge jump because of all the technologies. I said we have food available all the time. We have immunizations. We have health care. So all those things have added to a huge jump in our longevity as a population. But it doesn't mean people weren't dying younger and some people were living longer. So what they talk about now is the shift in our longevity as a population is probably due to big factors like COVID, suicide, drug overdoses, things like that are driving a lot of people that are younger away from our population. And that shifts everything down further and further as far as the average age. So if someone dies when they're young, that really can change statistically how our longevity is counted.
And today, Jeff Bost is my guest, and we're talking about, among other things, cancers that are starting to show up younger in people. How much better are we now with cancer prevention and cancer screening than we were, let's say, when you started in medicine?
I think there's a tremendous effort to do screening. We know every disease that humans have. If it's caught earlier, recognized earlier, treated earlier, the outcome is always better. And really, that's why I'm here a lot to talk about, and the fact that people often, as we are in our middle ages, and 50 is included in that, we don't think about the mortalities of heart disease and cancer. But a lot of the things that we can do in our 30s, 40s, and 50s can set us up for not having those diseases when we're earlier. So the idea of screening and prevention, learning and recognizing the condition or the symptoms and signs of things like cancer and heart disease and diabetes now, intervening now, and then perhaps preventing a serious complication later in life.
Do you ever run into patients whose attitude was, I figured by the time I got this old and get this sick, medicine would have figured out a way to deal with it? And that question comes to mind because talking about cancer, I just saw an experimental drug for lung cancer. Are there people that I'll just keep abusing myself because they'll get it sorted out before it needs to be applied to me?
I think there may be, and I don't know the answer to that because I don't relate to that. But I think that the fact that we're thinking about a miracle down the road is not the way to think about it, because despite all the miracles that may or may not be coming down the road, the bread and butter number of people are still going to have health-related problems that they need to take care of now. So the idea of wishing for that golden pill at some point in our lifespan is really not going to happen. Cancers are so variable. They're different. They affect us differently when we can intervene, whether they've metastasized to different parts of the body. All of these things are factors that it's very, very unlikely that there's going to be, again, a magic pill that we're going to take and all of our cancers are going to go away.
Jeff Bost of St. Barnabas is with me. It's Teleforum. More with Jeff after news on Beaver County Radio.
For the 13th year, eyes in Beaver County will turn to the skies on Saturday, June 24th for Push Beaver County's Beaver County Boom. Beaver County Boom is presented by Visit Beaver County, and it's bigger and better than ever. There will be skydivers, and both Air Heritage vintage military airplanes will fly over, followed by the star of the show, Beaver County Boom, at 9:45 p.m. It all takes place over the Ohio River between Monaca and Rochester. Bring your radio along or listen to your smart device to the Beaver County Presley Ridge live broadcast on Beaver County Radio beginning at 6. Title presenter sponsor of Beaver County Boom is Visit Beaver County. Bronze sponsors include Arthur M. Brandt, MD, PhD, the Borough of New Brighton, Clearview Federal Credit Union, Gary J. Havranek, OD, Knoll Funeral Home, Riverside Bed and Breakfast, Rowe Monument, West Aircom Federal Credit Union, and West Banco Bank, among others. Don't miss Beaver County Boom, Saturday, June 24th.
Friendly Federal Credit Union, you've got a friend.
If you have a graduate in your family and are wondering what to get them, look no further, because a gift that they'll potentially use over their lifetime and cost you virtually nothing is available right now at Friendly Federal Credit Union. This is Cindy Haladio. Open up a graduate account for your aspiring student today. They'll get free checks, a $1,500 Visa credit card with approved credit, a debit card tied to their account, no service fees, and online access so they'll be able to take care of things no matter where they'll be heading off to college. It's time for you to commence with plans for your graduate. Visit Friendly Federal Credit Union in Baden or Aliquippa. Member NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
Friendly Federal Credit Union, you've got a friend.
When you talk about community involvement and safety, the name Fry stands at the forefront in Beaver County. Fry Transportation's mission is to continue to raise the bar as the gold standard in their industry by providing the safest, most reliable, and cost-efficient transportation service in Beaver County through their strong relationships with their communities, best-in-their-class drivers, equipment, and technology. There's nothing more important than the safety of their students, employees, and community members. Fry Transportation, where the quality of their organization is characterized by the makeup of the individual behind the wheel. It might be time to repair or replace that old garage door. Call on Robin and her team of expert installers at Electric Garage Door Sales in Monaca. Dial 724-774-3200 and your door will work like a charm. Featuring CHI quality garage doors, LiftMaster garage door openers, and over 50 years experience, Robin and her team will get it done right. Electric Garage Door Sales. Give them a call at 724-774-3200 or find them online at electricgaragedoorsales.com.
J. Young Refuse and Industry is proud to be an integral part of Beaver County for the past 34 years. Featuring a wide range of recycling services for contracted areas, they are sure to help you get the job done. The J. Young Refuse team of professional drivers consistently exceed safety and service throughout the day, while their customer service representatives take professionalism to the next level. J. Young Refuse and Industry salutes our veterans for the freedoms we enjoy. Call J. Young Refuse at 724-495-6199.
Ever been sitting minding your own business and suddenly discovered that the world is spinning rapidly of its own volition? It can be very frightening. Vertigo, or the illusion of motion, isn't just a sensation you get when you peer off a tall building. It's a problem in the body's internal balancing system, creating the sensation that you're moving even when you're not. And you're not the only one who has it. It happens to more people than you realize. Treatment of this condition needs to be seen by a professional. It's time to call Del Reckless at MRS Physical Therapy. Chronic cases of vertigo can persist for days or even years. Choose MRS Physical Therapy to help you now. You don't have to live with vertigo. Call Del Reckless at MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater and Cranberry. Visit mrsphysicaltherapy.com.
Beaver County Radio's news source, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
And good morning on this Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. The Beaver County weather forecast is calling for scattered showers today, cloudy skies throughout, and a high of 81 degrees. We'll go over your full details of the Beaver County weather forecast following this look at news. Beaver County Radio News correspondent Sandy Giordano reports that a Chipotle restaurant will be built in Beaver County. A conditional use hearing was held prior to the Center Township Supervisor's regular meeting Monday night. The new Chipotle facility will be located in the shopping plaza where Ross's clothing store is in the township. Jonathan Kamen, whose firm owns the shopping center, told the supervisors it is strictly a drive-through if a customer has an app. If not, they can go in and order their food. Construction is expected to start on Monday, August 7th of 2023, and they expect to be open for Christmas. Mr. Kamen told the supervisors that parking spaces for the restaurant will be designated and signage will be put in place. Pennsylvania State Senator Elder Vogel Jr., Majority Chair of the Senate Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, will be hosting a press conference in celebration of National Dairy Month and in honor of Pennsylvania's dairy industry on Thursday, June 22nd from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. at Soldiers Grove, located on Commonwealth Avenue in Harrisburg. This event will feature key agriculture and dairy leaders who will provide an overview and share the successes of Pennsylvania's dairy industry. Additionally, Vogel will also have some of Pennsylvania's dairy princesses present to share industry-specific information, baby calves for some photo opportunities, and the Pennsylvania Dairymen's Association's milkshake truck at Soldiers Grove from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Speakers at the press conference will include Russell Redding, who is the Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, Senator Judy Schwank, Minority Chair of the Senate Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, and Representative Eddie Day Pashinsky, Majority Chair of the House Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. At last week's Ambridge Council meeting, Councilman Tony Caffarelli was appointed vice president. The position was previously held by Mayor Tina Iorfido Miller. Russ Basayalga was appointed to serve Mayor Miller's unexpired term on council. Beaver County Radio News correspondent Sandy Giordano also reports that an announcement was made to remind residents that they are invited to attend the fireworks at dusk on Saturday, July 1st at Walter Panic Park. Council next meets in regular session on Tuesday, July 11, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers. Rescuers in a remote area of the Atlantic Ocean are racing against time to find a missing submersible carrying 5 people on a mission to document the wreckage of the Titanic. The submersible, named the Titan, part of a mission by OceanGate Expeditions, carried a pilot, a renowned British adventurer, 2 members of an iconic Pakistani business family, and another passenger. Authorities reported the vessel overdue Sunday night about 435 miles south of St. John's, Newfoundland. Every passing minute, however, puts the Titan's crew at greater risk. The submersible had a 96-hour oxygen supply when it put to sea at roughly 6 a.m. on Sunday. In Pennsylvania, the Our Hair Initiative will provide mental health support for Medicaid members in local black salons and barbershops and to help reduce the stigma often associated with mental health issues in communities of color. Danielle Smith has the details.
1 in 5 Americans is affected by mental illness, according to the CDC. Lori Weems is program manager for the Our Hair Project with Community Care Behavioral Health. She says African Americans experience mental health issues at the same rate as the general population, but only about a third of them actually obtain the help they need. She says the Our Hair Project starts the conversation about mental health.
We thought this would be a perfect marriage of trying to engage people around mental health and to normalize talking about it by training the barbers and stylists on how to talk with their clients about mental health, substance use, suicide prevention, and then how to link them to resources.
Weems says community care made a stronger commitment to social and racial justice and health equity after the death of George Floyd. She explains that as a group effort, the organization came up with a company-wide strategy plan that focuses on 6 key areas. One of those areas is community engagement, and it was this work group that launched the idea of the Our Hair Initiative to arm barbershops and salons with mental health resources.
Here's the Beaver County forecast on 95.7 and 99.3 FM. Along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Scattered showers today with a high of 81 degrees. Cloudy and humid tonight with a low of 67. A mix of clouds and sun tomorrow with a high of 80 degrees. Cloudy with a slight chance of rain Thursday with a high of 72. Scattered showers and thunderstorms Friday with a high of 75 degrees. That is a look at the news for now. I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News. 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WNBA, and streaming live at beavercountyradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WNBA are those of the participants and host. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WNBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WNBA.
It is Teleforum. I don't even know what day it is. Every day here is a holiday. It's Tuesday, isn't it? Jeff Bost is my guest from St. Barnabas. I'm talking about, it's a serious topic, but it needs to be talked about because it's showing up more and more. We're talking about cancer in younger people, and we're talking about particularly colon cancer in younger people. And you wanted to bring up the risk factors. We were talking about the risk factors during the news. I got a bunch of them, starting with bologna.
And then you're not talking about what you're talking about, right, when you say bologna? No, bologna is a processed meat.
No, wait a minute. Back up a second. That might be the first time that you took a shot at me, and I am so proud of you, and you're exactly correct. We're talking about what's the stuff that I did growing up that I shouldn't have done, didn't know then what we know now as far as the risk factors and what I'm shoveling into my body that can honestly help, or not help, honestly mess me up colon cancer-wise.
Well, actually, you were right both ways. Some things can help and some things can't.
Okay.
But you touched on something that is really a problem, that is processed meats. Now, when I eat a steak, that's not processed meat. That's, as you said, the bolognas and the sausages and the lunch meats and the hot dogs and the hams and the bacons. And the reason for that is, yes, they're meat products, and those proteins are good for us, but what's with that? The preservatives, the high salts, and the mostly fat content in them as well.
Is that what when you buy ground beef, it's 73.29 or 21, that's fat added into the ground beef?
It's fat that goes with it. But the point is, with that kind of fat, you can cook it off and so on, and you're still left with the protein, which is essential for our lives. It's the processing, what I mean by actually putting it in a vat and adding all these preservatives and salts. And there's a reason processed meats are processed. They process to last much longer. And those nitrites, which are known to be carcinogens, can cause problems, especially as they go through the gut and they sit there, and they can cause an inflammatory process, which sets us up for a greater risk of cancer. So those things are bad, but there are food things that are good. For example, leafy vegetables. Some people call those nature's broom. But again, what that does is that helps pass it helps pass through the colon to clean the colon. And those things with high fiber are very good for the probiotics or the bacteria that live in our colon. So diet is very essential, how we eat, what we eat, to the onset or preventing colon cancer. So, for example, what we've been eating and drinking a lot of, especially as we were younger, is more alcohol. Alcohol is one of the higher risk, along with processed meats, that they're both have been identified as probably the two greatest reasons that people are more susceptible to colon cancer besides genetics. So these are things that you don't want to consume in high amounts. Things you want to consume, as I said, leafy vegetables, fresh foods, citrus, fish, things like that can help improve our digestive tract and help things move more quickly through the digestive tract.
You said this was the number 2?
Processed meats and alcohol.
What was number? So my whiskey and raw hamburger parties were a bad idea.
Raw hamburger's not bad. It was the sausage and bologna parties added to that.
Well, there was a lot of bologna added too. What is number 1?
Well, it's the idea of alcohol consumption.
Okay, that's the number one thing.
And then followed by processed meats. Those have been identified what we call epidemiologically, meaning looking at large.
Dumb that down. What does that mean?
That means looking at large populations, identifying what is common amongst those that suffer from colon cancer.
Oh, okay.
So,
finding the common ground between all the people that get the
Right.
same disease.
Right.
Okay.
And another common factor in which people who get colon cancer is obesity.
Okay.
Obesity is one of the highest risk factors for colon cancer. And the reason obesity is a problem is it sets up an inflammatory process. So our body becomes very inflammatory. And as I said earlier, our colon cells are quickly multiplying because they're getting shed through the colon quite frequently. And an inflammatory process can interfere with that cellular division and set it more risk up for cancers.
Why does what becomes inflammatory first when you get into the ranks of obesity, and why?
Well, fat in and of itself, excessive fat. We need fat. We need fat in our body. It provides insulation. It provides stored energy. But excessive fat, and the most is the ones that are around your belly, the extra belly fat. It actually produces its own type of hormones, and it becomes very inflammatory as far as the molecules
Really?
that it produces. Yeah, so it's its own factory, if you will, of putting out inflammatory molecules.
So it becomes a part of your body that's working against the other parts of your body.
Yes. Now, this is probably an unforeseen problem because, as I talked earlier, there weren't fat people and there weren't long-lived people evolutionarily.
Right.
We didn't have those things. So it's not that we necessarily intended that to happen, but that's a fact. If you have significant abdominal obesity, it can put out hormones. We know that it's associated with increased breast cancer. It's one of the greatest factors for increased breast cancer in women is abdominal or obesity. So it is in and of itself an inflammatory agent. So that's how toxins work. Toxins in the environment, toxins in the air, they also set up an inflammatory process. We know that's the air pollution, for example, is one of the greatest risk factors for developing lung cancer. So overall, the things that we do, the things that we eat and consume play a big part in the development of chronic diseases like cancer.
How much undoing can we do? If I had my whiskey and raw meat parties until I was 30, but then I went, what was the term, nature's broom?
Yeah, nature's broom.
If I went at 30, I said, okay, nothing but roughage from now on. You've always told me you can make the future better by addressing in the present. How much undoing of my bad habits can I address?
I can't give you a number, but I can tell you that it's never too late. So we say that about dementia. We say that about heart disease. Anything you can do positive, exercise, for example. If you have excessive weight, watching that weight and lowering it, changing your diet, all of these, watching your alcohol content, all of these things additively can improve your health style and your lifestyle and your longevity. If you don't care, it's going to be a problem. But if you even start with a small amount, Alzheimer's disease, and we talk a lot about Alzheimer's disease, even if you have Alzheimer's disease, even small amounts of things that we know that can help prevent Alzheimer's disease can help. For example, walking, changing your diet, cognitive interaction, socialization, even those things, even when you have certain early stages of Alzheimer's, can slow it and improve the outcome. So cancer is the same way. We can help diminish. And also, as I said earlier, the screening processes now are going to also diminish that, but we have to act on that.
When should I have started getting screened for cancers, colon cancer?
Well, most of the screening processes do start around 50.
That was the standard. And remember, after 50, go see the doctor.
Yeah. And those things may be shifting. I don't know the actual plan to shift them earlier, but there's no reason that you can't ask your doctor for a test for blood in your stool even earlier than that. But the point is there are symptoms related to these conditions that also people need to be aware of.
What do I look for to say, okay, I'm going to call my doctor?
Right. So one of the biggest things is changing your bowel habits. If you had a certain bowel habit and all of a
I
sudden...
thought you meant like a better or worse attitude for a second. Okay, you're talking about your schedule.
Yeah, your schedule.
Okay.
You want to, if there's a consistency in your schedule and all of a sudden things are way off base, that is a concern. Certainly rectal bleeding. If you have bleeding, that's a red flag. Now, granted, there's lots of reasons for rectal bleeding, but certainly rectal bleeding would be something you'd need to give your doctor a call. Weakness, fatigue, that would be associated with losing blood and you're not quite as strong as you used to because you've developed an anemia. Unexplained weight loss. All cancers, for the most part, are associated with unexplained weight loss. Pain or difficulty with your bowel movements as far as discomfort is also a red flag. And certainly if you've been already identified as having polyps, precancerous polyps, you need to continue to follow up with your doctor for colonoscopies. That's another red flag if you have colon polyps that are precancerous.
Why do you lose weight? Because I've seen that, and I've had people say, "Oh, wow, maybe something's wrong. They've lost a lot of weight."
Well, the direct link is to appetite. So,
okay, you don't feel like eating.
So Wegovy and all these new diet pills are coming out. That's how they work. They tell you you're not hungry. And cancer's sort of the same way. You don't want to have cancer to lose weight, of course, but they act in a similar fashion in that it's not driving your hunger drive, and so you lose the weight. It isn't like somehow your metabolism necessarily changes and you're burning off all kind of calories, and that's why you lose weight. It's the fact that you're not eating.
When you watched, wasn't going to be a part of the show today, but you just brought it up. I'm curious. When you watch the lose weight and here's how, are any of those in your mind medically sound to justify taking them?
Probably not the one that shows up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
The guy going, look at my pants. They're so baggy now.
Yeah, but I think that there's certainly, and we've done a number of shows now on Living Well, our Saturday program with Dr. Maroon on weight loss drugs that are coming out, how they work, the hormones that are involved, and how they give you a feeling of fullness. They work by slowing the digestive process. And therefore you have a prolonged sensation of fullness. If you have fullness, generally people aren't hungry, and so that slows your appetite and you don't put more in your mouth, and therefore your calories drop. And it's a very effective way, and it's similar to what gastric bypass was doing in the sense that you only can get so much food. It slows your digestive process, and so that hunger craving that you might have is diminished.
Is it a little bit, not startling, but is it a little bit sketchy that it's putting hormones in your brain to make you think you're not hungry?
Well,
what's it doing to convince? It's not constricting like the old bypass or like the old belt surgery.
Yeah, it's actually working on the hormone receptors within the intestine and stomach area. So it's not necessarily working on, but the feedback is obviously through the brain in the sense that the brain senses the fullness or lack of fullness of our upper intestines and our stomach and so on. So that it's really the feedback loop that we're stimulating, and it works. The real problem and issue is the fact that if you stop it, you immediately gain the weight because your appetite returns and you're hungry again. So the question is, in the long term, really you need to change your life habits.
Well, how problematic is that for the colon that you keep sending it mixed signals? Is that adding to the potential cancer risk because you're messing with cells?
You are thinking outside the box, and I think that's great. But as to the answer to that, I don't even think we know. These drugs have just been developed. I think that the question is valid. If you don't have the same passage of food, does that make a difference? I'm primarily talking about colon cancer. These drugs primarily work in the small intestines and stomach, so the presumption is it's probably not related. But it's a great question that someday we'll probably find out, because the weight loss drug is going to be around for a long time.
What did I not ask you that I should have? Well, now here's another question. What do you tell somebody that says, I've never had any problems? Why should I get screened? It sounds uncomfortably invasive. I'm young. I'm 35.
Colon cancer, you just do that in your own home, in your own bathroom. So I don't think, but there are things like prostate cancer that are certainly more invasive for men and women that have to have, screening of their breast tissue can be uncomfortable as well. I think the question is, we do a lot of things that we don't necessarily, if we have a sore tooth, we have to go to the dentist and have it pulled. We didn't necessarily want to have it, but the pains that we have from cancer may be long delayed after the cancer is really extensive throughout our body. So the pain and the feedback that we usually have for these diseases is not always there. So that's why we do need medical care, and we have it. And if people utilize it as well as an improvement in their lifestyle, they could live long and happy lives and change our longevity. Going back to your previous question.
Are we outliving our bodies?
Yeah, I would say probably yes.
Or are we at least in the process of working down the timeline of outliving our bodies?
Yeah, the question is of how long can cells last?
Right.
And our biological model, how long does that last? And there's certainly a finite limit. I don't know if we've reached it or even know what that could be. And certainly there are people working on that. But, I think we have to do the best we can. And, I think we don't want suffering. We don't want people to be, our large percent of our population to be demented and unable to function. So the brain function is probably the key to all this. If we can maintain brain function, then maybe we can figure out how to make the body stronger longer.
I saw a story. There was a very rich man, and he wants to live forever, and he was getting blood transfusions from his 20,
son.
30, 40, his son.
Yeah.
When you saw that story, what was your medical reaction to
Well,
that?
it is true. Now, granted, I don't know how long that guy's going to end up living, but there are things in younger blood, quote unquote, that people have found that may improve health. But whether that actually lets him live to be 150 or whatever age he wants to live to, I don't know. But there are some science behind that, but I don't know a lot about it.
What should I have asked you that I didn't?
Well, the one thing is, Eddie, and it's more of a downer type thing, the bad news is that all cancers, all diseases are actually shifting from the older than 50 to the younger than the 50. And we've seen that with the explosion of more heart attacks in younger people relative to cardiovascular disease. Cancers are now increasing dramatically in younger people with prostate and breast cancer in women that were generally relegated to older age. Again, a lot of that is due to screening and catching things early, which is great. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the majority of cancers caught in younger people are actually in their later stages. So just beware that cancer is still out there. We haven't cured it, and screening and seeing your doctor and healthy lifestyle will definitely help.
It's always great to see you. It's great to see you in person.
Yeah.
You going to come back and visit us again?
I'm going to try.
All right. Jeff Bost of St. Barnabas is my guest. It's Teleforum on Beaver County Radio.
For the 13th year, eyes in Beaver County will turn to the skies on Saturday, June 24th for Push Beaver County's Beaver County Boom. Beaver County Boom is presented by Visit Beaver County, and it's bigger and better than ever. There will be skydivers, and both Air Heritage Vintage military airplanes will fly over, followed by the star of the show, Beaver County Boom, at 9:45 p.m. It all takes place over the Ohio River between Monaca and Rochester. Bring your radio along or listen to your smart device to the Beaver County Presley Ridge live broadcast on Beaver County Radio beginning at 6. Title presenter sponsor of Beaver County Boom is Visit Beaver County. The platinum sponsors are Davis Foundation and W.D. Wright Contracting Incorporated. Media partners include the Beaver County Times and Beaver County Radio, among others. Don't miss Beaver County Boom Saturday, June 24th.
Oh my goodness, Amy, it's so good to see you.
Jennifer, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Is your mom doing any better?
Thank you for asking. I don't know if I can answer without being emotional. I'm sorry. I'm just tired and worried. I can't always be there for her, and it's so stressful.
I really understand. That's how I was with my dad. I'd recommend calling St. Barnabas. We did. We started with just having them come in for home care. He was so excited to see them show up. And when he needed more, we were able to move him in at Beaver Meadows, where he still has his own home-like space and excellent care.
Thanks for telling me that. I don't even know how to start, but I have to